What does the aloha spirit mean to you? Like, if you had to describe that to somebody, maybe someone who's never even been to Hawaii, like, what does all that mean?
In the most simplistic terms, really, it means be nice. That's really all it all it is. It um, just be nice to each other. Hawaii is a very welcoming place, and aloha. I know it's kind of talked about a lot, but aloha means a lot of things, and so that doesn't necessarily mean that like it specifically means love or it specifically means hello. It just has a lot of meanings. It's just a meaning of like goodwill. It's just a lot of the good feelings toward each other is what it means. Translated, it actually means aloha means the breath of life. Ha is breath and alo is life. So it actually means that you know, we're sharing breath with each other. We're close. We're part of each other. That kind of thing. So really, it just means to be decent to others.
So what's the difference then? Mahalo is that like more specific then? Like what are the nuances between those two or the differences
Mahalo
between?
means thank you. It's an appreciation.
Okay, that's all.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, I wasn't sure if that was because someone told me it means like spirit. So is that also sort of a thing or
No, mahalo is basically just appreciation.
okay.
So like I was saying about aloha means a lot of things, right? And people say that it means hello and goodbye. It doesn't specifically mean that. If you're leaving and you say aloha to someone, it just means hey, love, best, because in Hawaiian, ahui ho is actually goodbye, which means specifically translated means until we meet again. Because in Hawaii, it wasn't about we're not focused on the fact that we're leaving each other. We're focused on the fact that we'll see each other again, that we'll be together again. So the actual words for goodbye in Hawaiian is ahui ho.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what was it like for you? Speaking of like see you later, what was it like for you when you left Hawaii and came to the mainland, which you did for college, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I went to University of Washington in Seattle.
So what were you the first person of your family to leave? Like what was kind of what was all the anatomy there? Was there some drama around it? Was it happy? Was it sad? Was it a little bit of
Oh,
everything?
I think I think it was excitement. I think in my generation of cousins, I think I was the first to go to the mainland. But I think there had been people who'd done it before. But it was kind of a bigger deal, right? Because generally you went to University of Hawaii or one of the smaller colleges there. Uh, and for me it was I always knew I wanted to. I really always felt like I was going to go to the mainland for college. And then I wasn't
Why?
sure if I'd stay. What was that?
Why? Like what made you think like I always want to do that?
I just, um, I'm not sure what it was, but I kind of always had this idea. Look, hey, it could have been dysfunction. It could have been like, it could have been, childhood trauma and that kind of thing could have been part of it. And I think it is, but also too, man, when I watch TV, because this is, I'm a kid in pre-internet, right? So when I watch TV, I wasn't just entertained; I was connected, man. I wanted to go see those things. I wanted to go do those things. Always had that feeling, and even if it was just for the 4 years of college, I thought I'd just go for college, and if I'll come back home if I have to, whatever, or if I want to. But I did always feel like I wanted to go see the mainland, and it was a really man, it was a big thing because you got to realize for the first time in my life, I was truly a minority, and I didn't really understand that. Because in Hawaii, there's, I think Japanese is probably the most, the majority, but everybody's kind of close to being, the majority, unless you're white or black. Those are the two biggest minorities in Hawaii, or at least were when I was growing up.
Mhm.
Um, and so yeah, to come to the mainland and like, oh, I actually am a minority. It was educational, man.
What was your biggest culture shock in Seattle when you got there?
Mostly, well, I don't know if weather is a culture shock, but the culture,
We'll count it.
but it's the culture of weather, right? Weather in Seattle does dictate a lot of how you behave, right? A lot of things don't happen, because it's probably going to be rainy. So we just don't make outdoor plans in Seattle. They happen spontaneously, and that's a weird thing in Hawaii, right? Because if we're going to the beach on Saturday, we're Monday we're talking about it. Everybody's all right. We're going to go to the beach, and we're going to do this. We're going to go to this beach, and I realized in Seattle you just don't make outdoor plans. It was a very weird thing. Now, if the sun shows up, like, hey, we're going to the beach today, that was kind of, everybody gets excited, but it was and then just sort of planning along weather, and how life goes according to weather was really shocking to me because in Hawaii you don't really plan your day along the lines of weather.
It's funny, man. I mean, I guess I've experienced a little bit of that now, like pretty much in the opposite direction. Because I grew up in Western Pennsylvania, the Pittsburgh area, where it has some of the worst weather in the freaking country. Like the
Right.
summers are humid as hell, and you feel like you're in a gym sock, and the winters are cold and snowy, and it rains all freaking year. And so when I came to Seattle, when I lived in Seattle, I was looking around and I'm like, what's everyone complaining about? It's sunny here way more than other places I know. And also now having lived in Southern California for a little while, like my wife and I were back in Pittsburgh briefly for a family thing, and it was in the summertime. And we were just randomly around one afternoon and we just decided, oh, let's go for a walk. And, in Southern California, that's just something, you'll do whatever you feel
Right.
like it. Like, let's
Right.
go for a walk. But like my parents, they were kind of taken aback, like, you're gonna go for a walk. You're gonna because it was the summertime. You don't go for a walk. You do
Right.
not go for a walk between the hours of 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. You don't do it
Right.
because it's like humid as hell. And we were like,
Right.
yeah, we're gonna go. It was like 2 or 3 or something. We're like, yeah, we're gonna go. And then like a little couple minutes later, we were walking around, we're like, "Oh, yeah, you can't do this here. You don't do this here.
Right.
It's not something you do." Um, so what made you decide to stay?
Uh, you know, I kind of liked the independence of it, right?
Okay.
Because Hawaii is a very small. It's an island. They're all islands, and so you're connected a lot. And I kind of liked not being connected. And then on top of that, then comedy started, and then that was it. I That was really the final. I mean, I like Seattle. I enjoyed it, and but when I started doing comedy and actually getting people inviting me to do gigs away from Seattle, that to me was really cool, right? In Hawaii, you don't, the idea of driving 3 hours to go tell 5 minutes of jokes, it just doesn't exist in Hawaii, right? You can't build a comedy career when you're on an island. And so I thought, well, I'll ride this comedy thing for as long as I can. And then as a comedian, Seattle's just a great town. It's a not just because of gigs, but also because the weather and stuff. It's great to kind of sit by the window and just write a few jokes because you're not going outside. But that rain as a backdrop to writing, like Seattle has, and Seattle has great support for all artists, and so it was really a great city to be in. And that was it. If I had any inkling that I was going to go back, probably my second year of open mic, that started to really go away because I thought I need to be. Because at the time, when you first start doing comedy, you're not flying anywhere. Nobody's flying you to any gigs. So I needed to be around where I could drive to gigs in order to get better, and that became my focus. Well, I just want to be able to get to stage time, and that was it. And then as I progressed in comedy, I just decided I really do like the city. I really do like Seattle. So yeah, it was first, it was kind of just I liked being on my own, and second, I just pursued comedy. I just wanted to keep going.
Yeah. No, and that makes sense too, a lot about the writing part because you look at like Seattle and the Pacific Northwest in general, not even just Seattle, but like the Pacific Northwest in general is one of the most literary abundant places in the country.
Yeah,
And it's like that's definitely part of the reason why. Like part of the reason why is it is such a great backdrop to just sit and write.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that was something that I wasn't. It's one of those things where you don't realize you were looking for. I wasn't looking for that. The last thing I was trying to do is be studious about comedy. I just want to have fun. But then
Mhm.
all of a sudden, you notice like for 2 days it's just been pouring rain, and I was just sitting there at my desk looking out the window and started coming up with a joke here or there, and I noticed like, oh wait, this is helpful. This is a good thing.
Mhm. So, since we're still on Hawaii, let's get into one of your not necessarily new endeavors because you've been doing it your whole life, but now you're like you kind of have this new incarnation with it, and that's your music. Because like now you're like you're really going out and doing that. And
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, but it started as just something you were doing during, the 2020 lockdown to just kinda, have something to do, and so yeah, share that story, like, what exactly transpired there?
So okay, well, it goes back to so I when I first came to Seattle, I knew about 3 or 4 chords on guitar, and for a lot of Hawaiian music, that's all you really know. If you can, you can play a lot of songs if you know that. Like you can play if you know 4 chords, you can strum a bunch of songs. And then when comedy became my full-time job, I realized I needed another hobby. I just lost my hobby, right? So I was in this really scary motel that I didn't want to be in. So I went for a walk, and there was a pawn shop with a guitar for $40. And so I bought the guitar, and I would take it on the road with me. And before they would charge for luggage, I would even fly with it. When I started flying, I would take the guitar with me. Actually, at a club owner, I walked out from baggage claim, and this club owner looked at me and he goes, "Oh no, you're not a guitar act." Like he was really disappointed that I was, and I said, "No, no, no, this is just for the hotel room. I don't do it in the stage." And so it just became a little hobby, and then I started learning. I decided that slack key music, which is a whole different kind of approach to the guitar, it's open tuning type stuff. I didn't know anything about it, but I love listening to it, so I started learning slack key. All right, so now we get to lockdown where I can't do stand up, and this is kind of pre Zoom shows were figured out, and we're just sitting around wondering if we're going to get back to work, right? And I was getting very stressed about it, and so a friend of mine, Kerry Camacho, who's an amazing guitarist, he just put on his Facebook Live camera and just started playing, and I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. And so I asked him about it, and so I did it, and it just became a thing where I started doing it every Wednesday, and I still, whenever I'm not doing comedy or a gig or whatever, I have I'll do a Wednesday show on Facebook, and it's gotten better. I learned a lot about sound because at first I was just doing it through the air to the laptop mic,
Mhm, mhm.
and now I've got a soundboard, and I can go into it, and I have effects pedals and things like that. But like it's really grown
Yeah, it sounds
into a
great, man. I
thing.
mean, I'm a regular listener, and
Ah,
yeah, I mean, you sound incredible.
I appreciate it. It was a learning experience, but I had nothing else to do, and so the great thing is it's made me a better musician because I didn't want to play the same songs every week, so I started trying different songs, and then a bigger amount of non-Hawaiian songs. Like usually the last 3 to 5 songs are non-Hawaiian, or I'll put them in there in the order somewhere. Um, but I do a lot of different types of Hawaiian songs from like the 70s and 80s, traditional songs, contemporary songs, to like reggae songs. Reggae music is very popular in Hawaii, and so yeah, so I cover a lot of people. I have a few originals that I kind of sneak in there every once in a while, and it's become a thing. It's got a very small. I want to point that out. A very small but loyal group, like of about 20 to 35 people who listen, and then people who do kind of come in and listen and may not comment, but there is a very fun group that kind of I see them in the comments during the show. I see them talking to each other, like replying, like, "Hey, how's it going?" They
Yeah.
they live in different states, and it's been a blast, and it's actually made me a better musician. And I want to point this out, still not like nobody's going to watch my Wednesday show and go, "Oh, that's a professional musician," but it has made me a lot better than I was in 2020, and I'm getting live gigs now. So I've got a few. Like last year, I think I did about 8 music gigs, which is nice because, as you know, comedy slows down a lot in the summer. It's
Right.
tricky in the summer, so it's nice to have that sort of other thing going on in the summer. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, so what was that like for you when you kind of were in a situation where you're like, "Oh, man, I'm doing this live, and I'm not telling jokes." Like, I mean, I know you've done other small things where you've, like, done a couple songs, right? Because like, I know there's been situations where you would do Hawaiian music. Because I remember back when I lived in Seattle, you did I forget the context, but there was a context where you, were performing some Hawaiian music at a live event, and the reason I remember this is because you get up there and your opening line was you were like, "If you were expecting me to tell jokes, I'm sorry. If you're here to hear me play music, I'm sorry." And I'm like, "I love Current. That was the best."
Um,
So, I
you know
don't
what I
remember
think?
what it
You know what
yeah.
it was? It was the Folklife Festival in Seattle. It was
Yes.
Folklife. So
Yes, it
Folklife is
was.
great. So I had not done live, and I was so nervous doing live music. And Folklife has been great. They've had me on. I think I've done it. About 8 or 9 of the last 10 or 12 years. So they're great. And so that was my first sort of introduction to performing live. Um, but that was it, and that's once a year. That's Memorial Day weekend, and other than that, I really wasn't doing anything live. So yeah, it was a very rare thing that would happen. And by the way, I want to say this: as a comedian, you really appreciate what you get to do because you walk up, you tell jokes, and you leave. When you're a musician, you're 2 hours earlier, and you're you're setting the whole thing up, you're sound checking, and then afterwards you're rolling chords. Like
Oh,
just
yeah, dude.
yeah, it makes you really appreciate comedy. Like just come up and tell jokes.
Oh, yeah. No, dude, totally. I mean, a lot of my musician friends, like, we talk about that sometimes. I'm like, "Yeah, it's always crazy when, like, I'm doing a rock club and they're like, 'Can you be here for sound check at 5:30?' And it's like, I guess I could, but you realize that's not necessary, right? Like, you
Yeah.
realize, like
Right. Yeah. And then that's the thing. Rarely do you go to a comedy gig and you need to load up a hand truck. You know what I mean?